p.m. this Wednesday afternoon. We're on the air with coverage of Hurricane Idalia.
All right, now we're going to bring you the very latest updates on Hurricane Idalia and what we can still expect here in Central Georgia as the afternoon rolls along. Let's check in off the top with Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones and Meteorologist Jordan West.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, what we're watching is that things going right to plan, really. As we were watching the models and the track over the past couple of days, was this stuff was mainly going to be staying off out of reach for the most part as far as the eye is concerned in southeast Georgia, but throwing some wind gusts and some rain up into our area. If you take a look here, you're seeing wind gusts 25 to 30, 30 plus. This is totally doable here. This is not crazy wind or anything like that. So actually this is a good thing that it's not worse than this. I was looking at some of the max wind speeds a little while ago that just came out for some of our southeastern counties. Eastman at 40 is the only one we have seen get into tropical storm force because you got to go above 39 miles per hour for that. Other than that, anything underneath it is like tropical depression or just a breeze, basically. And if you look on down, the white number is going to be your kind of sustained wind. And then as we look at the yellow number, that would be your, occasional wind gust. And we're seeing those as high as, again, 35 to maybe 40 in some of these areas. There's a look at the tropical storm warnings. It's basically for our whole area, with the exception of Putnam County, Jasper, Monroe, and Upson. Just means the potential for hurricane force or tropical storm force winds. And again, we've only seen that once, and that was in Eastman, and it was barely there at 40 miles per hour. There's the radar shot going right to plan, as I mentioned. So this is the way the models were showing things to play out, and that is with the, kind of the shutoff on the western side or the clean side of the storm that we talk about. As you can see here, so that's going to be the side you want to be on. You don't want to be on the dirty side of the storm or the eastern side, which is where you're going to get spin-up tornadoes and those bands and all that. So as we pan the map on down, you can see some flash flood warnings that are going right along with all of this. Telfair and Wheeler were added on just a little while ago, and the reason for flash flood warnings is simple. It's because of too much rain in a flash. So if you have low-lying areas, maybe streets or roadways that are prone to flooding, creeks, streams, things like that, that kind of warning covers that in a short-term basis, not like an aerial flood warning for rivers that can go 2 or 3 days out waiting for rivers to rise. So this is going to be kind of a here and now thing. And again, if you look at the track of the storm and the eye of the storm here, I'm trying to get the arrow to kind of move a little steadily for you, but it's not wanting to play along this afternoon. But you get the idea that it's kind of staying just outside of Telfair and Wheeler. So a couple of things in play here where, yes, you have the center of circulation a little bit closer, so you start thinking, oh, the winds are picking up, but also you have a storm that is weakening as it is coming closer to our southeastern counties. So good news with all of that as we, obviously much worse in Florida as they had the Cat 4 and then a 3 and then a 2 and then a 1 as things were coming on down. So before long, as a matter of fact, we can do a check on that now and see if the old weather computer will pull it up for us. It's going to be, watching those wind speeds in the top left corner here as we look at the track. And we are almost 75 miles per hour. You get down below 74, it's a tropical storm. So only a matter of minutes really left before this is not Hurricane Idalia anymore. It will be Tropical Storm Idalia. So that's good. You want to see that weakening, and that's what happens when you get these things over land like this, is that they will start to kind of fall apart. Here's a look at that track. It still calls for this Cat 1. I don't think it's going to be that far. I think it's going to be a tropical storm here in a little bit, and then come out over the Carolina coastline into the Atlantic and continue to make its way on out. As far as any severe weather with that, again, that is always on that eastern side of the center of circulation. So Savannah on up the Carolina coastline is where we would see any sort of tornado stuff, not here. So what we are left with is really, not trying to downplay it, but it's for the people who are weather wary. For some people, this stuff kind of makes them uneasy. Setting your mind at ease that it is not a crazy thing right now. So we're looking at mainly just some sprinkles, some steadier rain as you get farther toward the south and east. And of course, we are seeing some steadier rain as you get up in a couple of these little bands, like in parts of Milledgeville here, Baldwin County. So it's really simple. The farther south and east you go, the greater your likelihood of having a steadier rain, and also the greater likelihood of having some gusty winds. But once again, with the wind that we have been seeing, it is not off the charts crazy. If you think about it with relation to, say, a severe thunderstorm warning, which we get a lot of those in the summer, the criteria, minimum criteria for that is over 58 miles per hour with the winds. We are nowhere near that with this. So we can have these kind of wind gusts even on a sunny day, like in the fall with a frontal boundary coming through that's a dry front with no rain. So totally doable. Having said all that, Could there be some tree limbs down, some trees down, some power outages because of that? Sure, if you have some areas that we saw a lot of rain yesterday, some places that have already had some saturated soil over the past week or so, or old trees, dead trees, those are going to be a little more susceptible to going over, and occasional traffic problems here and there. But by and large, not as bad as what it could be. And if you compare this back to what Michael was, a few years ago, when that was still a Cat 2 coming through our southern counties, this is smaller than that. This is not on the same thing. Now, it was a beast coming into Florida, but it has gone over land enough that it has started to weaken on down. So good news all in all when you look at it. The wind speed's below 39. Tropical storm force winds are not in the picture anymore. Then you're talking like tropical depression. So we're kind of on the outside edge of it. But having said that, again, Telfair, Wheeler, Treutlen, Lawrence County, Johnson County, maybe parts of Washington, you could get a little bit of a breeze, but it is not anything that we can't handle. I think the flash flooding in Telfair, Wheeler, probably a somewhat bigger deal. If you know of some of these low-lying areas, dirt roads or any of those things that probably shouldn't try to pass those when you're having a steady rain like that. That would be the most, immediate concern for that. So I think that's all we have for right now. And we're going to now not going to go over to Jordan because we're doing something different with that. I think, guys, we're going to go over to you at the desk. Frank and Lori, welcome.
We are ready. Thanks very much, Ben. Right now, Georgia power crews are working to repair a downed power line on Highway 41 South. That's in Monroe County, near Thornton Road. And you can see right now there are some people without power right now. The sheriff's office obviously asking you to avoid that area. Some scattered outages, but they don't look to be too bad right now in that particular area of Monroe County.
So let's go ahead and check in with Jessica Cha. She is live in Lawrence County. Jessica, what are you seeing?
If I had a couple words to describe what it's like to be out here, I would say it's soaked to the bone. My jeans are completely soaked. My hair is completely soaked, and I'm really wrestling with the wind to keep this umbrella in my hand. But despite these weather conditions, that is not stopping people from still going out and eating. I'm outside of a Longhorn Steakhouse, and I had a chance to talk to a manager out here who says that they're staying open due to company policy. And I also spoke to one man who was coming out after eating a meal here. His name is Roy Stuckett, and he's been living in Dublin since 1952. He says that they've had a hurricane that was bad once, but never again. He says it's never been that bad. He says a storm is not going to stop him from living his life.
I love this middle of Georgia. You can't go wrong. Even though weather might be the hurricane season, but we're in the middle of it, and it's not bad.
Okay. Has it ever gotten super bad in Dublin before?
Not.
Yes, it has.
Well,
a hurricane. What is Katrina?
Well, she a little older than me. I can live with that.
Okay.
But I can speak for myself.
Okay. And y'all are just dining out right now, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Why'd you choose to go out and eat?
Because it's a rainy day in middle of Georgia, the hurricane.
EMA Director Bill Laird said that about 40 minutes ago in a Facebook post, he said that winds are going to be maxing out around 40 to 60 miles per hour, and that the current predictions say that the eye of the storm is going to be passing through McRae and Vidalia, which is only about half an hour away from here. But that's all we have for now. Live in Dublin, Jessica Cha, 13 WMAZ News.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Now, we do have one school system already making a call for tomorrow. That is Montgomery County Schools, just to the east of our viewing area, and they will not be holding class tomorrow.
Thornton Road? In Monroe County, all right, Thornton Road, we're getting word, is now back open again, so they've been able to clear up the blockage they had there. So Thornton Road, Monroe County, good to go right now. All right, Suzanne Lawler in Telfair County a little earlier today, where they saw some rain, a good bit of wind kicking up.
A lot of the roads were pretty clear in Telfair. Most people had the day off from work, and all the schools closed for today. One couple living in McRae, Helena, they stayed up through the night watching the weather, and then this morning they decided to evacuate out of their double-wide mobile home and get to a hotel room in town.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I sat through one with my parents at their house, and it was worse. The whole trailer was shaking and everything else. So now it's time for us to take our kids and find the nearest shelter.
All right, now so far hotels we checked with in the area do have rooms available. The fire department says they're ready. They've got some crews ready with chainsaws to handle any downed trees.
That's right, and the sheriff's department is also fully staffed and on standby as well. So continuing coverage of Hurricane Idalia, Megan Western joins us in Treutlen County. And Megan, can you explain conditions where you are right now?
Hey guys, as Ben said earlier, the rain is definitely still coming down here, but we're also starting to see some down trees as well. Right now I'm on Boiling Springs Church Road, and as you can see, this is the scene where fire crews just left a little minute ago. This is a tree that had fallen across the street, blocking off traffic. It is pretty much cleaned up for the most part right now, but this is all the damage that has been reported as of lately. There have been no signs of down power lines or anything like that. Just about an hour ago, we spoke to EMA Director Justin McNur, and he told us there was one accident involving 2 cars that hydroplaned. He says several businesses are also starting to close up for the day, so if you're driving, you're going to want to drive slowly and use caution. Now, throughout the day, he does expect for the winds to keep picking up, so he says that crews, including fire and police, are, ready to head out and clean up the damage, but for right now, this is all that we're seeing. But yeah, everything's mostly cleaned up here, and I'm live in Treutlen County. Megan Western, 13 WMAZ News.
That is good news. Thanks a lot, Megan. And if you do see damage, we'd like you to take a moment and send it to us, but only when it's safe to do so. Your safety, of course, is the priority. You can text those pictures to the number on your screen, 478-752-1309, or you can upload them through the Near Me feature on our app.
Let's check in with going on around the state. Governor Kemp visited the State Operations Center to provide an update on Hurricane Idalia. Let's hear what the governor had to say.
On our private sector utility partners, we got about 61,000 without power right now that we know of. We have folks standing by and ready to move as soon as it's safe to do so, and Director Stallings will fill you in a little more on that here at the end of the briefing. As you all know from current events, Idalia made landfall on the Florida Gulf Coast as a Category 3 this morning before dropping to a Category 2, and currently it's Category 1 as it continues to move throughout Georgia. We feel like that'll fall to a tropical storm by the time it leaves us and heads into South Carolina. It entered Georgia around 10 a.m. We're thinking that it's going to get to South Carolina between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. this evening. There's been a heavy impact in South Georgia with heavy rainfall and heavy winds. I know most of the people across the state of Georgia will not feel the impact of the storm, but for those that were in the line of the storm, it is very hard hitting, and we're certainly watching that as it continues to move through the state. We had multiple counties in the affected area that are seeing winds in the 70 to 80 mile per hour and some gust up to 90. We know by radar it looks like we may potentially have in some areas 9 to 10 inches of rain. The good thing is this is a narrow storm and is very fast moving, so it's not sitting on us and dumping even more rain than that at one time. So we're thankful for that. Just to give you some logistics on what Director Stallings has been doing in my direction, we've activated the State Operations Center, as you all know, early Monday morning to monitor the storm's progress and coordinate closely with all relevant agencies that I mentioned earlier, not only at the state but also at the local level, and we've certainly been in touch with our partners at FEMA. The state of emergency was issued yesterday, making state resources available to all local governments and organizations within the hurricane impact area. We have assets staged, and our personnel are in the EOCs in the affected areas, and we're coordinating with our utility providers, and Director Stallings is going to talk a little bit more about that. Lastly, I would just say that we feel fairly confident that we're going to be able to get crews moving here as we move into the afternoon. We obviously have to make sure that the storm passes and it's a safe environment for them to be working. You're talking winds that drop below 35 miles an hour for folks that need to be up in bucket trucks. We certainly want to take make sure our first responders stay safe. But as soon as those conditions are right for us to move, we have resources ready and able to do that. Lastly, I would just say when the storm came into our state in counties like Eccles and Lowndes, we've certainly seen a lot of downed trees. I mentioned the power outages, and there has been some flash flooding. So we're going to continue to watch that as the storm moves, but thankfully it is weakening now. And with that,
Of course, yesterday the governor put all of Georgia under a state of emergency as Idalia approached. The governor made that call, so the state's resources were ready to respond. In addition to other help, it provides up to 1,000 National Guard troops.
The order expires just before midnight Friday, September 8th. We're going to get some video, actually see it here, out of Savannah. You can see the sky is very dark there, kind of cloudy conditions too, a lot of rain and wind that you see whipping up there and also on the streets. Now, Renata De Giornio is in Waycross, Georgia. That's just a little west of Brunswick. She's going to give us an update about what's going on up there.
We are back in downtown Waycross, and this is worse than we have seen it so far all day. At one point, I just heard the wind whistling through the trees. I just heard up here as well on the Holiday Inn, a panel, there it goes, a panel of the roof has detached and it's been blowing in the wind. I heard the first time it did that, it sounded kind of like a just a detaching sound, and the wind gusts are getting much heavier. You can tell in the trees. We're right here, you can tell by the Holiday Inn. We've got the Walgreens, a Shell station, Burger King. We're right near the Walmart in Waycross. Things have really picked up here. The rain, not so much. I spoke with the fire chief just a little bit ago, and he said that this is really where we are getting into it. You really need to be aware of your surroundings right now because the wind is picking up so much. At many of the intersections around here, we have the street lights blowing a lot in the wind, so be careful there. We have been speaking with people around who have faced one man over on the outskirts of town a little bit on the east side said that he had been dealing with his fence falling apart and is hoping that it just holds steady today. We also spoke to a man who's staying in a hotel just down the road. He was staying in a mobile home with his wife 15 miles from here. They decided to get a hotel instead so that they could feel safer in a more sturdy place with walls.
All right, time to check back in with Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones, Meteorologist Jordan West, continuing to monitor conditions. Right now, though, things at least holding pretty quiet, Ben.
Yeah, not that bad out there, really. If you go in our southeastern counties where we're seeing the strongest stuff, even that is not so bad. And I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. But first, we have a few folks we're going to be talking to today. Bill Laird, Lawrence County EMA Director, is on the line. Bill, how are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
Just wonderful. All right, so Lawrence County, I'm looking down there right now. I'm seeing wind gusts at maybe 25 to 30 miles per hour. The only wind gust I've seen in our southeastern counties to get to tropical storm force winds was Dodge County. It was around Eastman at 40 miles per hour a little while ago. What all have you seen in the Lawrence County area?
We've had good steady rain. Excuse me. We've had good steady rain. I think the maximum recorded gust we got up to this point has been about 32 miles per hour out at the airport. But getting a lot of rain. We've had a issue with one or two roads that we had some water over the roadways. We've only gotten a few tree down calls. We've got crews on standby just in case, and prepared for the worst, hoping for the best.
So in other words, I mean, it doesn't sound bad down there. I mean, as far as like, there's no roads impassable. How about power outages? You know anything about that there?
None have been reported at this time. And looking at the graphics and data from the local EMCs as well as Georgia Power, we don't have any power outages in Lawrence at this time.
All right. Sounds good, Bill. That's the kind of thing we want to hear, isn't it? Yeah. So the models were showing it kind of doing what it's doing now, which is kind of some gusty winds at times and then maybe some light to moderate rain out there. So, Bill, good, great work. We appreciate you checking in. We'll let you get back to it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Bill Laird there, EMA Director in Lawrence County. And again, we have some other folks who will be checking in throughout this afternoon. It's probably going to be a similar story, which is prepared for the worst and not that bad, which is great. So as you look at the wind speeds out there, again, 25 to 30 to maybe 35. So keep in mind here, I don't have it on the screen or anything, but if you were to look at, say, the Saffir-Simpson scale of how tropical systems are rated, once you get above 74 miles per hour, then you're in a Category 1 storm. We're at 75 now, so we're at a storm that is coming down, that is almost not a hurricane anymore. It's almost a tropical storm. Once you go tropical storm strength, that is anywhere from 39 to 73. Well, 39 mile per hour winds, we're not seeing that anywhere. We had that one spot, as I mentioned, in Eastman there at 40, Fitzgerald showing 43. So again, the white number is kind of your sustained winds, sort of a steady breeze, and then the occasional gusts at 25 to 30. Totally doable. This is not bad at all out there. So as you get closer in, we saw Waycross in that story just a moment ago when those winds were whipping a little bit stronger, maybe over 50. Also to keep in mind, when we have severe thunderstorm warnings, which we do a lot in the summertime, and we have seen some doozies this year, the minimum criteria for that to go into a warning is over 58 miles an hour. We're nowhere near that, and that's for a garden variety severe thunderstorm warning that we would see sometimes in the summertime. All right, so a couple of things too. As the center of circulation, if you want to still call it that, going past us, toward Telfair and Wheeler, but outside of that, you would think, all right, storm's kind of getting a little bit closer to our southeastern counties, the winds are going to pick up. Sort of makes sense, except for the storm is also weakening as it gets closer to those counties. So we're not going to see a whole lot of movement with that. The numbers have been kind of staying sort of static there, and I'm going to think we're going to see them start to come down as we go through the next couple hours. But you can see the tropical storm warning still in place for basically all of our area, except for Jasper, Putnam, Monroe, and over into Upson. What does that mean? The potential to at least maybe have some tropical storm force winds. But we've been struggling to get even near that, so that's a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of red on the map right there, but at least it's not showing up to be a problem, and this is the way the models were showing it to be this afternoon as well. So here's how a landfalling tropical system plays out. There's two different sides to this thing. The clean side, which we are on, if you had to choose, you'd want to be on that side. You can get some rain and get a little bit of a breeze, but you don't get all that severe weather and all that. So this is the drier side. A lot of times you'll have drier air pulled down, and you usually see a direct cutoff where the rain is and then where it's not. And somewhere between Thomaston and LaGrange is that cutoff, and we're kind of seeing a little bit of a dry slide here into parts of North Macon as well. So those outer bands, if you want to call it that, start to pick up in intensity as far as the steadier rain as you go farther toward the east and southeast. But as this storm continues to go toward the northeast through this afternoon, this is all going to start to pull away, and with it will be the wind. It looks like there is, just to show you, when you get on that northeast quadrant or off toward the east of a tropical system, that's where you're going to see your severe stuff, and there's a tornado warning near Statesboro there. So again, that's on these outer bands that come around through coastal parts of our state on into the Carolinas. I mentioned it earlier, just to kind of keep it, in perspective here. When Katrina came into New Orleans all those years ago, that storm was way over there, and yet we had outer bands that had tornado warnings in them. Fort Valley with a bank that had a lot of damage to it, even though the actual storm was way over there. So when you get from the eye and over, that's where the problems are. We're in the good side, but we're close enough to the center of circulation to at least have some gusty winds, but it is by no means a terrible situation out there, and it should continue to go like this with this storm weakening as it goes farther toward the northeast. Flash flood warnings are out, as I mentioned, for Telfair and Wheeler. That means for rain too much in a flash. That's the reason we call it that. So it's not going to last very long. Once the system gets through and that water recedes, flash flood warning is lifted. It's going to be for creeks and streams and maybe some roads that flood easily. Yes, Erica? Okay, all right, let's go to we're going to go to Justin McNair now, Treutlen County EMA Director. He is calling in. We're trying to check in with our eastern and southeastern counties. Justin, how are you?
Oh, doing great, man. How about y'all?
Doing just fine. The news is good so far. Is it good where you are?
Yeah, it's starting to change a little bit. We're starting to see more and more wind, which is wet as the ground is. That's becoming an issue. We constantly are having trees down now. Power lines are starting to go down as well. The most I've seen so far is 30 miles per hour gust. So we're just stationed up at our emergency command. We have fire, law enforcement, and EMS personnel. So we are just taking it tree by tree and power line by power line.
So no big problems that you've seen right now. I mean, a lot of times in these things, you're going to have at least a limb or a tree that'll fall on a power line, or at least, kind of cross a road up for a little while.
Yeah, that's pretty much all we're dealing with right now. No major damage has been reported. We just have a soft ground and some higher than usual wind speeds. So, that's going to block some roadways and things along the lines of that.
All right, Justin, we appreciate the time to check in. We'll let you get back with it, but all this is good news coming in. Again, it could always be worse. Obviously look up with what Florida had to go through, and then into South Georgia, and now again Southeast Georgia as it goes along. We're seeing things kind of weakening down. Not totally yet, still tropical storm forces. So we got to figure out kind of how is this going to play out as we go through the afternoon. We're still kind of planning ahead, so let's go to Jordan for that.
That's right. And in terms of the severe aspects, like you were saying earlier, you know, the winds are going to die down as the system moves closer to us. So I think that overall is going to bring the severe risk down overall. So heavy rain is something we are also watching out. You can already see majority of rain is just north of the eye of the system itself. That's going to make its way eastward and then out of our viewing area. I know you saw that tornado warning near Swainsboro, but overall, that will all stay over to the east of the storm. That means no tornadoes are expected for the central Georgia viewing area, and then we're still watching out for those power outages as we head over the next hour, hour and a half at the most. Now, as you can see, here's the future view. This is 3 p.m., so about 30 minutes from now. Most of the rain is already starting to dissipate, which is good for us. Moving into 5 p.m., the entire storm is basically now just to our east towards Savannah, and then making its way out off the eastern coast. This is 12 p.m., and that cold front is really going to sweep all of that out of our hair, leaving us mostly dry as we head into the upcoming weekend. Now, wind speeds for our north and western counties anywhere between 20 and 30 miles per hour, which isn't bad at all. Moving into, let's see, Bibb County, Southern Jones County, Baldwin, Hancock County, 30 to 40, 40 to 50 farther south. And then as we look towards our south and eastern counties, talking about Lawrence County, Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery, anywhere between 50 and 60 miles per hour. And like Ben was saying earlier, that's nothing more than what we typically see during the summer during these typical severe thunderstorm warnings. So overall, you know, things seem to be pretty, you know, we're sort of in the best case scenario, I'll say. You know, things could have been a lot worse considering it did eventually turn into a Category 4 hurricane while it was still out in the Gulf of Mexico. But, you know, I think we if you agree with me, Ben, I think we drew the lucky straw on this stick.
Yeah, man, matter of fact,
All right.
Hello. Well, we're going to give you two a break apparently right now, so we'll just go and toss back shortly.
Thank you, Ben and Jordan. Right now, Georgia Power crews on standby around the state handling outages. Now, earlier there was a tree down Monroe County. You know, we told you about that, but that has been taken care of on the outage map here. You can see just really not a whole lot of outages that we are dealing with.
Yeah, the green symbols with the white squares represents 50 customers or less without power. One near Dublin, one in Macon, one near Soperton. So again, as Ben and Jordan have been talking about, just a handful of customers, and even with the EMA directors, not seeing a whole lot of power outages in areas around the state. Obviously, as you head closer east to the coast, you're going to see more power outages, and that probably will continue to be the case. We are now getting ready to go back live to Lawrence County. Jessica Cha rejoins us.
Yeah, the wind is definitely picking up. I don't know if you can see it behind me, but at the row, you can definitely see the different skips of water that are being carried by the wind. And as we were driving out of the Longhorn parking lot, water is definitely flooding up in some places. There's a big gush of water, like I said, as we were exiting the Longhorn parking lot. However, we were talking to Dr. Frank Jordan, who is in charge of the Lawrence County VA Center, the Dublin County VA Center, and he was saying that, you know, they're preparing, they have teams at the standby. We're about to head over there. They have police at standby, they have crew at standby just to make sure that everybody is safe there. He says that their building is made out of granite and it's probably one of the safer places that you could be during this storm. We're about to head up there and talk to him pretty soon, but as far as that goes, like we were saying earlier, the storm is about to be picking up right now. That's what EMA Director Bill Laird was saying earlier. He said between the hours of 1 and 7 that we'd be seeing some of more of the stronger winds. He said that winds would be about 30 to 35 miles per hour, but definitely it would be peaking out at 40 to 60 miles per hour winds. We are seeing 4 to 5 inches of rain. Like I was saying, we did see some flooding up in some areas, so I'm sure that we're expecting to see more of that. However, that's all we have for now in Dublin. Live in Dublin, Jessica Cha, 13 WMAZ News.
All right, Jessica, thanks very much. We certainly appreciate the update.
Now, Suzanne Lawler was in Telfair County earlier today, and where they were seeing a good bit of rain and wind as well. A lot of roads were pretty clear in Telfair. Most people had the day off from work, and all of the schools were closed.
A couple living in McRae, Helena, stayed up through the night. They were a little bit worried, then decided to evacuate out of their mobile home and get a hotel room because they felt like that would be safer.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I sat through one with my parents at their house, and it was worse. The whole trailer was shaking and everything else. So now it's time for us to take our kids and find the nearest shelter.
Hotels we checked in with in the area have rooms available. The fire department also on standby. They're ready. They have a few dozen crews with chainsaws ready to handle any downed trees. And the sheriff's office is also fully staffed and on standby.
Hurricane Idalia continues to move along throughout central Georgia. Megan Western is in Treutlen County. We just checked in with the EMA director. Let's check in with Megan now.
Because of the wind. Hold on one second. We should probably just stay here.
Okay, we're clearly having a couple of...
I think we were seeing Megan, but
yes.
Jessica Cha. So, but as Ben just talked to EMA Director Justin McNewer over there in Treutlen County, and he said really not much going on right now. He said they are ready to head out if needed, but he seems to think right now everything is okay.
Yeah, we've seen the rain that is coming down, and all of our crews are having to deal with that and handle that, so we'll check back in with them a little later.
All right, if there is damage in your area, make sure after the storm passes through, you can then go out and take some pictures, okay? But not until the storm rolls through. You can text those photos to us, 478-752-1309. You can also upload them through the Near Me feature, and that's on our app.
Time now to check back in with Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones and Meteorologist Jordan West. Hey, fellas.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Yeah, just to show you just a quick look at the radar shot, you can actually see the rain starting to kind of tuck in a little bit here toward the east. So we're seeing less and less rain as you head towards 75. It's still in that southeast quadrant is where we're seeing the bulk of it. Again, not crazy, not terrible, and doable with the wind and the rain here. All right, so we're going to go on down the list here. We have Jamie Wilkinson, Dodge County EMA Director. Jamie, thanks for joining us this afternoon. How are things there?
Anytime. Thank you for having me. Things are kind of gearing down here. We've had report of some power outages in the south of the county and approximately 13, 14 down trees with lines here and there. But as of right now, no damage to any structures or anything of that nature.
Yeah, and actually, Jamie, Dodge County Eastman area is the only spot we have seen so far that has hit tropical storm force winds, and that was at 40 miles per hour, which is just 1 mile over the threshold to get into tropical storm force winds, so obviously could be worse there. I heard you talk about some trees. Did you have a number on any sort of power outages? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Right now, we're showing majority the city of Ryan without power. I'm unsure of other areas surrounding it, but right now we know the city of Ryan is without power.
All right, any words to Dodge County folks about as we go on through the next few hours? What would you tell
them? Stay in, don't get out and about as the ground, the trees loosen up. If we have any slight wind that brings them down and brings lines down, you never know. You can drive right through them and not even see them sometimes, especially as it gets darker. So just be careful out there if you're having to get out to commute.
Good words there, Jamie. We appreciate it. We'll let you get back to it. Jamie Wilkinson there in Dodge County. Almost got confused and said Wilkinson County there in Dodge County. Jamie Wilkinson. All right, so that's three, count them, 3 EMA directors with all good news there. That was with Lawrence, Treutlen, and Dodge, which is down in the area where you would expect to have the highest winds and the greatest rainfall. So far hearing about the same story, and that is, yeah, we've had some gusty winds and we've had some rain coming down that at times is kind of steady. And again, I think probably the more pressing thing would be is if you're on these rural roads, Telfair, Wheeler counties, places like that where we have a flash flood warning in place here, places that are susceptible to flooding, regardless of a tropical system. It could just be from the storms we had yesterday. I mean, those places if you're in that area. Just stay away from those. Be smart, turn around, don't drown, that whole thing. But as far as anything wind related outside of that, not seeing any real problems. I would kind of stick with Jamie's words on that, though. If you don't have to be out, don't be out, just in case we do have some saturated ground and there's a weak tree or old trees or something like that want to come over, because then sometimes you're going to end up with blocked roadways and things like that, and they got to get out and try to, clean all this stuff up, and fewer people the better. Give this another few hours and a lot of this is going to start to pull on out. Once again, Statesboro to show you here. This gives you an idea of that northeast quadrant. So if this is the center of circulation going northeast and then over in these outer bands, that's where you're going to get the severe potential, maybe some spin up stuff, some tornado warnings, and that's where we're seeing it. We do not expect to see that here. What you're seeing now is what we expect to see as we go through the rest of the afternoon, with eventually all of this kind of pulling away Let me show you the bigger picture here, and you can kind of get an idea of the, let's see, that's the bigger picture, but I wanted the really big picture. Where is that one? Here it is. So you can see, again, these outside bands, and we've been on that side of the storm many times before. If you have one that goes over through southwest Georgia, Alabama, puts us on the dirty side. We may not be looking so much for the wind in the center of the storm, but all the drama that can be on these outside bands there. So that's what they have going in the Carolinas and even in east central Georgia. So the center of circulation has been coming through Waycross. So when you look at it here and you think, oh, okay, well, this is starting to get closer to our southeastern counties, so the winds may pick up some. They could a little bit, but also keep in mind this storm is steadily weakening as it's moving northeast. So technically, it is still a very low-end Category 1 hurricane, but not far from, and the next advisory will probably tell us, from being a high-end tropical storm that eventually will also whittle down through those numbers as well. So just talking about those numbers, 25, again, so the number in white, that's your steady wind, kind of just a normal wind, sort of steady. And then the yellow is going to be an occasional wind gust that these sensors will pick up and say, hey, that was a little bit more than a steady wind. Let's write that one down. So they'll say 33, so that's an occasional gust that's kind of showing up more than the usual. And so as we look at 25, 30, 35, totally doable. That's not even tropical storm force winds. So again, the only one that we've had technically on paper is that 40-mile-per-hour one in Eastman a little while ago. Again, not trying to downplay the whole thing, but I know a lot of folks, kind of get a little bit weary when it comes to weather, and they see the tropical thing, and it's like, most of this is just not that bad. I mean, it's just a little bit of wind and some rain. Actually, the storms we had yesterday, in many cases, were stronger than this. So again, a severe thunderstorm warning, minimum criteria is like 58 miles an hour. And we've had storms this summer, 60, 65, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts with that. So again, overall, not bad. But as you go farther toward the north and west, totally not bad. Then you're looking at maybe not even a breeze and just a few sprinkles. So that's our area. As we look over towards southeast Georgia, even these numbers have come down a pretty good bit. St. Simon's showing up at 56 on a wind gust there. And of course, what they have to look out for on coastal parts of our state is when it gets high tide later. And you're talking about a big full moon, which is already going to be a bigger tide. So then, have to see what that does for any sort of flooding along our coast here. We'll figure that out as we get closer. But these numbers have come down from 50 to 40 on down into the 30-something range here. Now, Fitzgerald's still wanting to show off at over 45 miles per hour on the gust there. So even if you get closer to the center, the occasional gusts that we're seeing, not terrible. I'm sure there are some down there that are like, well, that kind of gets your attention a little bit. But as far as our area is concerned, not that bad. Once again, tropical storm warnings are still in place. But when you look at that, don't think way up 70 miles per hour. Think the lower end of tropical storm force winds, which is like 39. All right. So, and again, sometimes even on a fall front day, that's a dry front coming through. We easily can hit those kind of wind speeds. So it's all relative to the, you see the tropical thing and we see the sky out there. So 30, 35 just seems like more, but we do that on normal days a lot. So anyway, the tropical storm warning is there, and obviously farther south and east, it becomes a little bit more relevant. So as far as the rain is concerned in our western counties, I expect this to stay kind of going like this as we go through the next couple hours and then start to taper off as everything continues to slide toward the east and northeast. So we should start to see, not maybe a full cutoff, but again, just down to just a few sprinkles if you're out on the road, intermittent wipers every once in a while. Once you go east of 75 in our eastern half here, this is where the rain will probably stay steady. Obviously, even our southeastern counties until this starts to pull away. Jordan, you want to jump in here? We're talking about how, we're looking ahead for the rest of tonight, too.
That is right. And it looks like, I think, this will be the most severe we get, and we're not really much severe at all. The wind speed's only getting up to 40 miles per hour, and that's really just wind gusts. But I think within the hour, it's 2:38 now, so by 3 o'clock, I think that will definitely see a downward turn in terms of the severe aspects. So winds, up to maybe 50 miles per hour as we head over the next hour. If that rainfall's still going to be there at least up until the next hour, couple hours even. And then once again, like Ben was saying earlier, the tornado threat is very low. Tornadoes are typically situated in the northeastern quadrant of the system. As it moves, that would be far east of central Georgia. So that's something we don't have to worry about, thankfully. And once all of the system kind of makes its way eastward for any outlying power outages, that's when they're able to come in and actually restore those power outages for places across southern Georgia. But looking at the future view now, this is 3 p.m. You can see it's still a Category 1 hurricane, but most of the rain for our western counties are starting to dissipate. Now moving into 5 p.m. Looks like most of the storm is just to the east now, and let's back that up one more time real quick. Oop, there we go. It looks like by 7 p.m. we are all good to go. That cold front is going to sweep on through, has a lot of shear with it. It's going to tear the storm apart just a little bit as it makes its way eastward. And while the storm is over land, there's nothing fueling it. So it's going to, we're on the downward turn from here on out, and that's for just about all of the southeast. And then by 3 a.m., looks like we are nice and good still. As we head into the weekend, clear and dry for the most part. So I think we are looking pretty good. And a few things from the Telfair County EMA. Looks like there is a tree down on power line 41 White Bluff Road in Lumber City. We got a tree on power line at 165 East River Road, Jacksonville, Georgia. A tree down on the power line, Highway 117 in Jacksonville. And then it looks like there's another one near Marchant Dairy Road in Milan. So I know wind speeds aren't as strong as what they could be, but because of the saturated water or saturated ground that we already have right now, some of the trees could be a little bit on the weaker side. So it's something we do have to watch out for as we head into the remainder next hour, I'll say. But back to you, Ben.
All right, Jordan, I appreciate that. All right, guys in the booth, are we doing this next phone call? All right, Russell Reiner, Washington County EMA Director. We've had good reports from everybody. Don't break the streak here, Russell. What do you have going in Washington County?
We're very good, Ben. How are you?
I'm good. I'm okay. I'm like seeing the good news. I'm like seeing the lighter wind and rain. So how is Washington County faring overall?
Good. The call load has been normal as far as dispatches. We just had this light rain, kind of a little, just like almost like a tropical little breeze at the beach.
Yeah, it's not that crazy, is it?
It stays that way.
Yeah, so no, as far as like blocked roadways or flooding problems or power outages, nothing like that?
Very little flooding. We've had a couple of MVAs with a lot of water on the roadway. But other than that, so far, we're doing good. I don't think we've seen the biggest part of it yet. I don't think it's going to get much worse, but we're standing by ready in case we do.
I hear you, Russell. Yeah, kind of what we're looking at here is the storm, is outside of our southeastern counties and moving toward the east-northeast. So I would imagine that Washington County is probably not going to change a whole lot from what it is. It's just kind of the breezy, sprinkly stuff out there. Then in the next couple of hours, a lot of this is going to be moving away. So all good news. I'm checking my list, and everybody we have talked to so far, you get an A+, Russell. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, and I hope it stays this way.
Yeah, we keep going with the A+. All right, great report card. Appreciate it, Russell. Have a good one.
Right.
Tell everybody in Washington County we said hello. All right, so here's a look at the radar shot. Again, talking about where Russell's been talking, this is just light stuff. The yellow is going to be your steadier kind of rain. The green is barely showing up, just a few sprinkles. Again, the farther south and east you go, Telfair and Wheeler in that flash flood warning for the potential of too much rain in a short amount of time in places that just can't hold it. And that's really what that means. It doesn't mean the whole county's flooded, just some low-lying roadways, creek streams that are prone to, once they've passed the banks, that's all they can pretty much do, and then lighter stuff to the west. All right, back to the desks. Lori and Frank.
4-0 with the EMA directors, Ben. Doesn't get any better than that. Well done, sir.
Okay, Megan Western, she is traveling around Treutlen County. We're going to check in with her again. Hey, Megan.
Hi guys, yes, we did just take a small trip down the street, and of course it is still raining really hard out here. You can kind of start to see some of the effects from today's rain. If you take a look behind me, you'll kind of see like a small stream that's really starting to fill up. It's starting to flood just a little bit. The grass definitely has a lot of water around, and the roads are definitely slick. Now, the EMA director did tell us that earlier there was one reported accident involving 2 cars that hydroplaned. He reminds that if you are out on the roads right now, you want to 1, slow down, and 2, get home, get off the road, stay inside for the rest of the day. You're going to want to find a centralized location in your home. But other than that, there hasn't been any reported damage or anything like that, no down power lines. So it's looking pretty good out here in Treutlen County other than this heavy rain. Reporting back to you guys live in Treutlen County, Megan Western, 13 WMAZ News.
Thanks a lot, Megan. We're going to take a look at some photos sent in from our viewers from the 13 WMAZ Weather Network Facebook group.
Yeah, there's been sent in from Valdosta, where heavy rain and wind obviously were part of a pretty stout storm that rolled through there earlier today. Ronzella Ivy sending this photo, crews moving through in a small boat down in the Valdosta area.
This video sent in by Tranel Tillman, low quality, but you can see the floodwaters rising outside his home and the wind whipping rain across his phone screen.
Carol Abney's brother shared photos of their flooded backyard. Again, this is in Valdosta. High water approaching their back deck. Yeah, that area got hit pretty hard this morning.
Then one of our viewers from our Facebook posted some minor yard flooding in their yard in Washington County. And we have photos from Central and South Georgia on damage from Hurricane Idalia. Tranel Tillman sent in a photo. We just saw the video from him. This is from her sister that shows the floodwaters at an apartment complex at East Park in Valdosta.
And if you see damage, wait till the storm passes. As Ben said, the storm's moving quickly, so should be out of some areas pretty soon. And if you have any damage photos, then you can text them to us, 478-752-1309. You can also upload them through the Near Me feature, and that is on our app. All right, of course, Florida was the area where Idalia first hit as a Category 3. It was a 4, then right before landfall, a 3. Let's take a look at do we have some video or some pictures there of the Sunshine State right now, which I don't think is seeing a lot of sunshine.
There we go.
It's like St. Pete Beach. This is just west of Tampa. Yes, she did. Used to work here. Courtney is down there, and you can see earlier in the day there was a lot of rain and wind.
She was in the eye wall of the cat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're right, man. In Perry, Florida, and that's where, of course, the strongest stuff occurred. So you can see just how powerful this storm was when it first came on shore.
That's right. Surging seas triggered severe flooding in parts of western Florida as Hurricane Idalia made landfall. Footage posted by the Clearwater Police Department in the Tampa Bay area shows flooded conditions around Clearwater Beach this morning. More flooding was expected throughout the day in coastal and low-lying areas and Pinellas County as well.
Yeah. So Florida got smacked pretty good, Ben. Fortunately, Central Georgia, not so much.
No, not so much, and it's kind of going with the way the models were showing it. So no real surprises with what we're seeing here. And again, that video you saw from Courtney Jacobazzi that worked with us, she's in Atlanta now. She was inside the eye wall of that Cat 3 as it was coming in underneath that. I think it was a parking garage she was in right there. So, whew. So we're not seeing that kind of thing here. Obviously, nowhere near that. Center of circulation, once again, just outside our southeastern counties and moving toward the east-northeast as it is also weakening. Another advisory will be coming up, I'm imagining, here in the next probably 10 minutes or less, the 3 o'clock advisory. And that will probably, unless something really weird happens, is probably going to show that it is no longer Hurricane Idalia. It should be tropical storm because on the last advisory, maximum sustained winds were at 75 miles per hour, and that's 1 mile over. Just to barely get into a Cat 1. So I'm imagining this is going to be tropical storm Idalia in a little bit as Idalia passes Vidalia. So this will, and of course a lot of people looked at this and said, great, all we have to do is take the V off. We can say this word, and that's the way tropical lists are. It's never as easy to say as you think it is. So as we get on over into Bibb County, a little bit of rain and a sort of a ribbon here. So it's light stuff, but then every once in a while you'll see it pick up just a little bit, but by no means crazy. As we get into these southeastern areas, again, we're even starting to see that kind of wrap around and starting to want to pull away here from Dodge on into Telfair. Lighter stuff now in Lawrence County. So as we go through the next hour or two, we're going to start to see this effect from this really start to pull away more. Now, again, that's just with the rain. As let me see if I can get you to the old wind department here. Once again, if I had the Saffir-Simpson scale, but I don't have that. Most people don't just have that ready in their wallet like, hey, this is the Saffir-Simpson scale. So it would be once you get into 39 miles per hour to 73, you're in tropical storm force winds. These are well below that. The only one that we have seen over that 39 threshold was in Eastman at 40. Outside of that, it's all been below tropical storm force winds. So even though, yes, we have tropical storm warnings for all of this, the winds have stayed underneath there, which is great news. And again, if you look at this, and I looked at the models yesterday, we did see some numbers. It got up there for a little bit, but it's pretty much going to the script. I think there was probably some thought that we would see a few more of those numbers go into the tropical storm force winds, maybe some 45s to 50s, more widespread. But so far it has kind of stayed underneath that. So again, could be worse, and we're celebrating that it's good. So the other good thing is, well, two good things. First of all, a lot of people were wanting some of the rain, and then the other thing, it's not 100 degrees. So we'll take that. So it makes for a great Wednesday out there. So again, these yellow numbers are going to be the wind gusts, 28 to 30, totally doable. As we look south and east from here, even as you get into Bexley, Waycross now, which is toward the center, just in the past hour, they were having 50-plus mile-an-hour winds. They're down underneath tropical storm force winds. I'm not sure what's going on in Fitzgerald, but they've stayed above 40 miles an hour for about 2 hours now. So that sensor must be up on top of a tower or something. But anyway, as you look on off toward the east and southeast, you can see some bigger numbers in places like St. Simons clocking in over 50. I mentioned earlier that that's going to be the problem along the Georgia coast. When you got this big full moon high tide, you know, as we go through later today, see how that plays out with these winds. Or you're going to start still talking about some sort of a storm surge or onshore flow there that's going to pull in some flooding problems. I haven't heard anything crazy going on there yet. So it's kind of just threading the needle between us and the coast. And again, it is weakening as it makes its way further toward the north and east. Again, for the time being, and we may see this change here in a little bit, the tropical storm warnings in red, which does include pretty much our whole area with the exception of Putnam, Jasper, Monroe into Upson here. Everybody else in it. It doesn't mean that you're going to see tropical storm force winds. Okay. All right. Thank you, Erica. All right, Billy. Pressure zone. Billy Hancock from Crisp County. I need you to tell good news. Everybody we've talked to today, Billy, has said that it's just light rain and a little bit of a breeze. What say you?
I got good news as well. I've only had one trip down, and the highest wind I had was at 29 miles an hour around 2 o'clock, and a total rainfall anywhere between 1.5 inches and about 2 inches across the county.
You rock, Billy. That's fantastic. That makes us 5 for 5 now on EMA. So as far as like power outages and big stuff like that, I mean, you're not seeing any widespread things on that. I mean, you've seen that before. I know you have, but this pales in comparison to that, right?
Yeah, we didn't see anything like that. We had a few power outages, not really sure what caused those up in the north part of the county earlier this morning, but the power company got in there, Chris Power got in there, got that straightened out, and the rest of the day has been a breeze and not a hard breeze.
Billy, always good for the zinger right there. Yeah, so, a breeze is what we're seeing. So light stuff and light rain. Well, my friend, we could sit and talk all day, but I don't think there's anything else to talk about. It sounds like you got everything handled, so appreciate the time, and if anything changes, of course, holler at us, you know?
Yeah, thank y'all and appreciate the work y'all do as well on that end.
Thank you, sir. Take care. All right, so that's good. That is a perfect 5 for 5. Everybody that we have talked to in areas that you would think, you know, would be the affected areas that we were going to have some sort of damage or widespread power outages and things like that. We checked in with Washington County. We had Treutlen. We had Lawrence. Didn't we have Lawrence? And we had Dodge. And then Billy there with Crisp County. And so all good news on all of that. As we look at the radar shot, again, you can see everything swirling toward the south and east is where we're seeing the majority of the wind and the rain. And again, that's the way it's going to continue as we go on through this afternoon. Jordan, I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. I'm going to hand it to you for a second because I accidentally hit a button on this laptop.
Oh, no.
And I don't know what I just did. But I'm going to have to log back in. Otherwise, I'm going to be showing this same picture for like the next hour. So just give me a couple of minutes to talk about what we expect for the rest of the day. I'll be right back. Got to fix a little thing.
Gotcha, Ben. All right, so basically, like Ben was saying earlier, the most extent that we will see is basically kind of what we're seeing right now, which is only wind speeds up to 30, 40 miles per hour. Could we get into the 50s? Maybe, but I think that'll stay south and east of our viewing area, and that's in terms of the wind speeds. Heavy rainfall, you know, we've been getting rain just about all day. It's been off and on sprinkles, and as this system makes its way eastward, we'll start to see some clearing from our western counties as we head into the next few hours. But just looking at this timeline map, you can see we're going from the orange to the yellow as we head into this next hour. So I think we are doing pretty good for what's coming through right now. It was a Category 4 storm out in the Gulf of Mexico. Right before it made landfall, it was a Category 3 storm, and it significantly dropped from a Category 3 to a Category 1, and now I think it is just barely a hurricane. In fact, we should get an advisory at 3 p.m. That'll tell us whether or not we're still seeing those winds of 74 miles per hour or more. And if it's less than 74, that would technically make it a tropical storm, still Tropical Storm Idalia. All right, so this cone is moving eastward. As you can see, by 5 p.m. around dinner time, most of the rain, according to this model anyway, will be to our east out of the viewing area, seeing a little bit of green here and there. And then as we move, let's back up one more time. Let's see that again. There wasn't much to talk about, but moving into 7, and still seeing some showers here and there. And then by, I'll say about 8, there might be some residual showers, you know, tiny, tiny little sprinkles. But other than that, we are clear. We got a cold front coming in. And you can see that it's just going to push the storm eastward along the eastern coast. That's now 9 a.m. Thursday. And it looks like we're still seeing some sprinkles here in central Georgia. And then it's doing its own thing out there in the Atlantic Ocean. As long as it's not here in Georgia, we are all good to go. And just to talk a little bit about the landfall with the system, it made landfall near Keaton Beach, Florida. It was at 7:45 a.m. It was a Category 3 storm when it made a Category 3 hurricane, I'll say, when it made landfall, but it was a Category 4 at some point, meaning those wind speeds were higher than what you see here on the screen, and the minimum pressure was 949 millibars. And just looking at what the storm is doing right now, it's currently a Category 1 storm, wind speeds at 75 miles per hour or more. Once again, we're waiting on this 3 p.m. advisory. They've been issuing advisories every hour, kind of tracking the wind, tracking the pressure, tracking the movement. It's moving pretty quickly northeast at 20 miles per hour. Winds are at 75 miles per hour, and hopefully within the next 5 minutes, we will see a name change from Hurricane Idalia to Tropical Storm Idalia, and we'll see those wind speeds less than 74. But I'm going to go back to Frank and Lori now.
Thanks so much, Jordan. We're going to check in, I believe, live with Jessica Cha. She's still in Lawrence County. Is that correct?
I would say that when we arrived in Lawrence County around 10 this morning, the wind was almost non-existent, and now I would say that it is a consistent gust. Now, you weren't seeing it earlier, but just 2 seconds ago, the wind was ripping the umbrella out of my hands, and I'm not really sure if you can see, but the wind has broken my umbrella in real time. But other than my umbrella, in terms of casualties or damage in the county, I was speaking with EMA Director Bill Laird, who told me that they have not seen anything. He says other than 2 calls about trees down, one on the interstate and other one down more south in the county, he says they have had nothing come in, no storm-related injuries or calls. And he says he's really hoping that it doesn't get any worse. He says, again, that about an hour ago, their max speed of wind was 32 miles per hour. And he says that's the highest one they've seen so far. He says that it could get up to 45 to 60 miles per hour. See, the wind is about to blow me away right now, but he's really hoping that it doesn't get to that place. That is all the information we have for now. Live in Dublin, Jessica Cha, 13 WMAZ News.
Ooh, we're going to get Jessica a little sturdier umbrella next time. I don't think that one's meant for these wind gusts, so.
Gonna head back on over to Ben. Ben, did we get the computer issue resolved?
Yeah, computer good, new umbrella, Jessica.
Yes, there we go.
Just get the list going now, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got a little list of things we want to check on there. So speaking of things we checked on and folks we checked in with, we have EMA directors all up and down the spectrum there. Lawrence, Treutlen, Dodge, Washington, and into Crisp County. All these areas that you would think, if there was going to be a problem somewhere and we were going to have a lot of damage with trees down or power outages or things like that or flooding, it's going to be in those counties, and we have not had anything crazy. A couple of tree limbs, maybe a sporadic power outage. But all in all, they all pretty much said the same thing. Actually, Billy summed it up. It's a breeze this afternoon. So we have what is just a breezy situation, and really even that eventually is going to subside. Again, as we drag the map on over here, obviously closer to the center of circulation is where we're going to see the strongest stuff, and also in our southeastern counties is where we're going to see the majority of the rain. That's where we have a flash flood warning for Telfair and Wheeler. Again, it means too much rain in a flash. It's just for just a little while, and then once it recedes, the warning is gone. So this is just, these are temporary things while this stuff's moving on through. But you can already start to see going from I-75 over. We're already starting to see kind of this back edge tucking under, and this will continue to go this way as we go through the next couple hours. So really just light rain left in some spots. Eastern counties, when you get into the yellow, it's a little bit steadier, but by no means is it anything crazy. And then when we've been looking at the wind speeds again, and that tells a big part of the story. I'm going to see if I can get that up going for you. Once again, for tropical storm force winds, it's like 39 to 73, somewhere in there. And yeah, we have tropical storm warnings for most of our area. But you can see, even just since the last time I showed this, I don't even see, Vidalia there, but everybody else, 25 to maybe 30 mile per hour wind gusts. Not bad. We can do that kind of stuff on a sunny day, as I've said. So that's doable. As you get closer to the center of circulation, these numbers have dropped a ton, where we've seen 45 to 50 plus mile per hour wind gusts, and now those have come down to 30 to 35, somewhere in there. So much better than what it could have been. I'm hearing some folks talking in the ear. Let's see if they're telling me to go somewhere. I believe maybe they're trying to direct traffic. I'm hearing a couple little bits and pieces of sound. Guys, I don't know if you're hearing that. Is that to go to you? Or is it staying here, maybe?
No, I think we're getting ready to wrap up.
There we go.
Almost 3 o'clock, sir, so
Yes.
we're good, though. And I think we've been following the storm. Ben and Jordan have been doing a great job. Things have been kind of winding down, and that's good news.
That is really great news. And of course, if conditions warrant, we'll be back on the air. And so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up from now. We'll see you tonight at 5 o'clock on 13W MAZ News. Good afternoon. You're watching 13 WMAZ, 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, and we're on the air with coverage of Hurricane Idalia.
Yeah, we've been following this storm, obviously, for the past couple of days.
Right.
Finally made landfall this morning in Florida, moving its way across the southern part of the state. To find out some of the impacts it's had on central Georgia and when it could be gone, let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones.
All right, thanks, guys. And yeah, it's really been kind of going along with the script. We can go on over to Max 2 here, I believe, as we're talking about the radar shot. It's going right along with what the models were showing, which is kind of the wind speed we've seen, the kind of rainfall amounts we've been seeing, and also the movement and motion of this whole storm too. So the overall thing right off the bat is that everything is starting to leave our area in our western counties. This is all drying up, just a few sprinkles out here. Still seeing kind of an outside band, if you even want to call it that, with a little bit of rain that's kind of in a strip here that goes from Macon on down west of 75. The rest of it, light rain that is starting to tuck away more and more toward the east here as we go through time. So as we move the map over, you can see the flash flood warnings that are up for Telfair and Wheeler counties. And again, a flash flood warning is for too much rain in a flash. All right, so it's like, you know, creeks and streams, low-lying areas, dirt roads, kind of, you know, rural roads, roads that you know can become kind of impassable if there's too much water out there. So that's what these flash flood warnings are for. Once all this leaves and the water is deemed, you know, that's receded enough, then those things will drop off the map, just like all these have already gone down here. So everything has been following the center of circulation coming on up. So I would say that the worst of anything we're going to see is done as everything pulls toward the east. Let's get into the bigger picture right here, and then I wanted to show you this. This is going to be a 24-hour rainfall map. So this takes into account today, but also a little bit of that stuff we saw last night. So you can see some of our southeastern counties, 5.5 inches of rain. Not terrible. We've definitely seen more than that. Once you get outside of that, that's where you're looking 7.5, near 8 inches of rain. And there's the big picture. These outer bands, again, on the eastern side, that's where you're going to see the majority of severe weather, stuff like this right here with a tornado warning. We are on the clean side of the storm, the dry side for the most part. And you can already see everything kind of drying up as the bulk of all of this is starting to pull on away. So really over the next hour or so, this is going to make its way more and more toward the Carolinas. So wind speeds are coming down because the storm is also weakening. Once you get north and west of Macon, there's almost no breeze here. So we're looking at anywhere in the white shaded numbers. Again, these are kind of sustained winds, a steady wind. Once you get into the yellow, that's going to be your occasional wind gust that'll just kind of get flagged by the sensor there and say, oh, okay, it's a little bit higher as it's taking some samples. And that's where we're seeing some of the bigger numbers there. As far as closer toward the center, these numbers have come down a pretty good bit. St. Simon's still showing a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust here. But anywhere from 30, 40. Now, again, keep in mind, tropical storm force winds are like 39 to 73. And we only have one on record in our area this afternoon, at least with these sites. There are other sites obviously interspersed in here that could show different numbers. But in Dodge County and Eastman, there was a 40-mile-per-hour gust. That's the only one in the tropical storm category that we've seen. And then as far as the tropical storm warnings, those are technically still out, although probably not as necessary as they once were. You can see the storm outlook showing the severe threat mainly up the coastal parts of Georgia and the Carolinas. And then with the track right here, I was just checking in. One thing that Jordan and I were talking about a moment ago is that they've been doing these hourly updates, the National Hurricane Center, putting out new information. And then all of a sudden at 2 o'clock, apparently stopped that. And they're not going to do another one until 5. I'm not sure why. So now we're left with whatever it was at 2 o'clock. Is the last advisory as a Category 1, but we are probably already underneath that 75-mile-per-hour, probably tropical storm force stuff. All right, so that's what I have for right now, and I will show you future view in just a little bit, kind of how we go forward. Let's go over to Jordan now.
That's right. Just looking at some sky cameras now, seeing what's going on all across central Georgia. As you can see, just looking in downtown Macon, some clouds kind of making their way through. The camera is shaking there just a little bit, but overall, nothing too rough. Now looking over at Dublin, where most of the action is and or was, seeing the camera shake a little bit there. Trees are blowing a little bit, you know, nothing too bad there either. And last but not least, checking out Perry. There we go. Flags also swaying there. Traffic seems to be moving smoothly there too. And just, you know, a thick blanket of clouds that should clear on out. Ben, I think we actually have a blue moon, if I'm not mistaken, that we might be able to see tonight if the clouds, you know, decide to fade away.
Yeah, that's if everything plays along and we can get this one out here, we may be able to see that tonight. So yeah, good stuff with the sky cams, Jordan. You can see a little bit of the breeze out there. All right, so we were talking about some of the different counties. Earlier, we went down kind of a roster of EMA directors that we checked in with, and everybody pretty much gave good grades. Could have a little bit different story in Telfair County. We're checking in with Lee Connor now with EMA in Telfair. How are you, Lee?
I'm okay, I guess.
All right, now I've been seeing a couple of things coming in the National Weather Service chat about some possible trees down in an area. The first thing I want to ask you about is also a report of maybe a firefighter that was injured. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We did have one have a tree fall on them. She's going to the hospital. Not any life-threatening injuries, but got in the middle of this wind and tree having to fall on her.
Oh, well, thankfully, no life-threatening injury right there. So what are we talking about as far as trees and things like that? And what kind of damage have we seen?
We're pretty widespread, southern part of the county. A lot of roads blocked, a lot of power lines down. And even here in the city of McRae also. So
you're talking kind of Lumber City, places like that, or?
Lumber City, Jacksonville, Milan. So all our major cities are without some power, form, or fashion, and then the county is widespread outages.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like out of all the counties, which kind of makes sense, the one that's closest in toward the eye of the storm looks to be Telfair there. So, so what would you say to folks watching from Telfair County?
Right now, please stay home. Don't be on the roads. Don't be looking. We still got a lot of trees to clean up. We actually suspended operations until we know we can do it safely. So we've got a lot to clean up. And there's a lot of the trees that are down that have power lines in them.
I hear you.
So that's a major issue right now.
Yeah, I hear you, Lee. Well, we'd had good grades all across with all of our different counties. We've been checking in south and east until this right here. So we hope for the best, and we're going to let you get back to it and keep in touch. We'll keep in touch with you, all right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee Connor, Telfair County EMA right there. So overall, an afternoon that didn't see a whole lot with, wind or damage, if you want to call it that, anything like that. A couple of power outages here or there, maybe a tree limb down, obviously causing some of the power outages. But as far as the big stuff, haven't seen a ton of that until that phone call right there. So there's a look at the radar. Telfair still with some rain, and it looks like the flash flood warnings have just been dropped for that area. So again, if you're in Telfair, if you don't have to be driving around, don't. Sounds like they kind of have their hands full trying to clean a lot of that stuff up. All right, which way are we going now? We're going to go over to the desk, I believe.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Right now, Georgia Power crews are on standby around the state handling outages. We're going to take a look at the Georgia Power outage map. Now, here we go. On the key on the left side shows the impact by county and location. Counties hit by the storm's eye are seeing the most outages near Darien, Jessup, and Waycross, Tifton, and Moultrie. You also heard just from Telfair County as well. There are a handful of outages in our southeastern counties where they're having some power outages between 1 and 500 customers across Dublin, Eastman, Hawkinsville, and Swainsboro.
All right, continuing coverage right now. Megan Western is in Treutlen County right there to tell us what she's seeing throughout the afternoon and what's happening right now. Well, we lost communication with Megan, so right now apparently things are kicking up a little bit right there. So we will check back in with her during our 5 o'clock newscast coming up at the top of the hour.
Now, we do have some closures that we want to let you know about. We have one school system making the call for actually tomorrow, Thursday, and in our viewing area. That's Montgomery County Schools, just east of our viewing area. Again, Montgomery County Schools. All Central Georgia schools are reporting as normal other than the Montgomery one. Apparently, they're concerned about, flooded roadways and things like that, kids and staff trying to get to school.
I think we now do have Megan Western, once again in Treutlen County, Soperton, that area over there.
Hi guys, so now the wind has really started to pick up out here. The EMA director says that the wind speeds are now about 25 miles per hour. You'll see behind me that we're on Main Street in 2nd, and you can look and see that the power has gone out along the street. It's pretty much out all along Main Street. The EMA director also tells us that there's 2 other spots in some neighborhoods where we're seeing power outages, but he's going to blame most of this on the high winds, obviously. if we look to the right of me right here, you'll really get a good picture of how much the wind is really going. The flags are really blowing right there. We'll see the trees that are blowing really hard. So at this time, obviously it's still raining hard, but the wind is going to be the bigger thing that we're worried about right now. At this time, we do see some power lines going down as well and some trees, but for the most part, things are pretty good out here in Treutlen County. Live in Treutlen County, Megan Western, 13 WABC News.
Oh my goodness, Megan, make sure you stay safe.
Being buffeted right now, so as the storm exits, still got a little bit of punch to it right there in Treutlen County. Thanks very much, Megan.
Okay, we're going to take a look at some pictures that you have sent in to our weather network. And we see a tree down here, and then we also see some damage here. Maybe that's some kind of shed, and you can see the walls that have been put on the ground there. It's kind of hard to see. Let's see. So these are Idalia causes, storm damage in Valdosta. So all of these are coming in from Valdosta. We see a tree right there in the middle of the road, too. More tree limbs in Valdosta, one of the areas that kind of took more of a hit because it was closer to the eye of the storm. And if you have any photos of damage, make sure, first of all, be safe. Wait until the storm passes. But once it does, go ahead and text those to us at 478-752-1309. You can also upload them through the Near Me feature on our app.
All right, we'll be back on the air for our full 90-minute newscast. That starts at 5 p.m. Of course, stay with us online at 13WMAZ.com for complete coverage of Idalia, soon expected to downgrade to a tropical storm.